In Tamworth, joining me now live from Melbourne is Liberal MP Kevin Andrews, who's braved the wet weather to speak to us. We're very grateful. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Sam.
What do you make of this extraordinary call by the Deputy Premier and the New South Wales National Party leader this morning that the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, should quit as a Christmas present to Australians?
Look, there's lots of commentary and speculation around, and regrettably much is being seen through the prism of leadership. We've got to get back to the policies and the proposals and the programs which will lead to the best outcome for the people of Australia, and, you know, leave aside all the speculation about leadership that's going on all the time.
OK, but this isn't speculation. I mean, this is the Deputy Premier of New South Wales, not a Labor MP, but a coalition MP, not engaging in speculation, calling on the Prime Minister to quit. Is that appropriate?
Look, there's nothing new in state leaders of both political persuasions having differences of opinion with their federal colleagues and indeed federal leaders. It's been an art form of state premiers for decades now, and this is not much different to that.
I can't recall a Deputy Premier or a Premier calling on someone from their own side to quit. I don't know if you can. You've been around in politics longer than I have. But do you think that he should zip it? Would you tell him to stop making these public comments in the media?
Look, I've always taken the view that we in the federal sphere should take care of the federal matters, and our state colleagues can take care of things within their sphere, and it's probably best if we continue to look after those things which we are responsible for. That's always been my approach. It always will be.
OK. Do you think that it would be a lovely Christmas present for Australians if the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, was to quit as the leader of the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister of Australia?
As I've said before to you, Sam, that I think Australians are sick of the revolving door of politics. They don't want it. Any consideration of a change of Prime Minister, as I said to you in the past, should be at the very, very last resort that one thinks about. What we should be doing in the meantime, what we should be doing now, rather than getting engaged in all of this speculation and commentary, is getting on with the policies and the programs that will benefit the people of Australia. If we don't do that, then the prospects of Bill Shorten becoming Prime Minister are ever more real.
OK, so you would like to see Malcolm Turnbull then lead you to the next election?
I want to see a sound, stable government, one which is addressing what the Australian people have to say about a range of issues, listening to them, and then marrying that with the challenges that the country faces and putting forward policies that will meet those sort of real issues that we face in the future in this country. That's what we need to do.
OK, you didn't answer the question, though, with respect. Do you want Malcolm Turnbull to lead you to the next election?
Sam, I'm not into this rule in, rule out, all of that sort of stuff. I'm answering your question. My answer is this. What we need to do, what the Australian people want us to do, is concentrate on the issues that concern them and put in place some sound programs that will ensure that the challenges that we face as individuals in Australia and as a nation overall are going to be met. And that's the real task of us.
Okay.
And to get diverted by other things is really getting away from what we need to be doing.
All right, I'll ask you a couple of quick questions then. Do you expect to amend the same-sex marriage legislation when it heads back to the House of Representatives next week? And do you think there's any chance that those amendments will actually be successful, particularly some of them at least are going to be backed by the Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull?
Well, we will move amendments similar to those that were moved in the Senate. We think they're reasonable amendments, and it's good that the Prime Minister, as he said, religious freedom is important, and he's backing those amendments. And I would urge all colleagues in the House, on whatever side of the parliamentary divide, to look at the protection of religious freedoms in Australia.
OK, and also the citizenship debate is on the agenda. Do you expect more referrals of your colleagues to the High Court?
Look, I simply don't know. This process may throw more light on the background in terms of citizenship or foreign allegiance of members of the House and the Senate. If there are questions there, then obviously they'll end up in the High Court. It's been a long process and it may well be an ongoing one.
I want to ask you as well about the decision of the High Court to mean that going forward, Australian teenagers that want to transition, transgender teenagers that want to take hormone therapy will no longer have to go to the family court. We were speaking this morning with Megan, a mum from Melbourne, and her daughter Evie, who is transgender. What do you think of the High Court's decision to allow Australian teenagers to have that irreversible hormone therapy at that age without going to see a family court judge?
Look, I haven't read the decision, Sam. I've only seen some brief references to it in the media, so I'm not in a position to make any sort of detailed comment. My concern, however, would be as a parent, I suppose, that when any decision which is sort of irredeemable is made by a young person, that they've got the full knowledge and capacity to make that decision. That's why, for example, we restrict young people from doing a variety of things, from drinking in hotels to driving on the roads, etc., until they reach a certain age. And that's always going to be the balance in this regard. Do young people have the sufficient maturity, the knowledge, the information, etc., to make a decision that will have an impact on them for the rest of their lives?
Okay, just finally on the Banking Royal Commission, George Christensen said the government has been dragged kicking and screaming towards this Royal Commission. Do you support the Banking Royal Commission? Do you think it could have been better handled by the government in terms of the dismount into that backflip?
Sam, as a sort of general proposition, I'm a sceptic, I suppose, about Royal Commissions for a number of reasons. One is that they often look at issues that were well in the past and not what might have occurred more recently. Secondly, they invariably end up running for longer and costing more than is initially proposed. And thirdly, the more prudent way of dealing with issues tends to be more incisive policy measures and, if need be, legislative measures to deal with the real problems. Having said that, in this situation, like normal, politics is the art of the possible. There's been, various calls for a Royal Commission. The banks themselves thought that this was the best of the options that were available, and therefore we'll have the Royal Commission. The hope is, from my perspective, that the Royal Commission will concentrate on systemic issues in relation to banking and finance in Australia, rather than just getting caught up in a whole number of individual grievances. I think individual grievances are best dealt with by existing regulatory bodies, but if there are systemic problems, well, then the Royal Commission can obviously deal with that.
All right, Kevin Andrews in Melbourne. Stay safe. The weather there doesn't look that great, but thanks for coming to talk to us today. We appreciate it.
Pleasure again, Sam.